Um, so my next guest is Renzenbrink. So Erica just talked about the challenges and the current situation of the right of communication, but you've been working as a journalist in Germany, but also abroad, especially in Asia. You were also working 1 year in China, which is not the best country in terms of the freedom of press. Even they cannot concur with Turkey, but still it's not the best country. But now also you are working since September 2016 for the Report Without Border. So you can also a lot of things about Turkey, because Turkey is now a country which is most the oppression on the journalists and press going on. So in this term, generally in the world, but especially in Turkey, what you can tell us about the expression on media? Here you are.
Well, thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having me today. I was told I have 7 minutes to explain the situation of press freedom in the world, so I try to rush through some of the countries and then close it up with Turkey. So I'm working for Reporters Without Borders. I'm working in the media relations department. The countries I'm responsible for are the regions, among others, are Asia Pacific and Turkey. I've worked as a journalist before in China and Cambodia, especially. So basically, you probably all know our index of press freedom, the global index that we do, where we analyze the situation in 180 countries. What we can say basically is that the situation has worsened in the majority of countries, of the 180 countries that we are looking at, and that media freedom is now threatened as it has never been before, actually. I think the most dangerous countries right now for journalists, but also for bloggers, for independent media outlets, are definitely Syria, where at least 19 journalists were killed last year because of their journalistic work, but also Iraq, Yemen, Afghanistan, Mexico. In many of those countries, you have groups like the Islamic State, IS, or the Taliban, for example, in Afghanistan, that are targeting media and journalists really in a very brutal way. Afghanistan is also an example for a country which is very, very dangerous for female journalists, because the pressure from society there is very high for female journalists. Mexico is sort of a different situation. The source of violence comes from something very different. I think it's very dangerous for journalists, for example, in Mexico, to cover organized crimes or drug cartels, for example. And Mexico is also an example for impunity for crimes against journalists. So, whatever happens to journalists, it usually goes unpunished, which encourages whoever did the crime to continue to commit more crimes, which is a vicious circle, and it's a very big problem in Mexico, among other countries. And yet, in total, to give you sort of a figure, last year 74 journalists have been killed worldwide directly in connection with their work. I think shocking is that a lot of them have been killed deliberately, so that they were attacked because of doing their journalistic work. But what we saw when we published, or when we went through the results of the annual index of press freedom, is that violations of press freedom is less and less sort of a prerogative of authoritarian regimes or dictatorships, but that media freedom also becomes more and more fragile in democracies where you actually wouldn't expect that. I think a very prominent example that you all know is Donald Trump and his very, very strong anti-media rhetoric, which has repercussions on other countries globally. I think he called journalists among the most dishonest human beings on earth, and accused them of doing fake news, not writing things that are true apparently, but that also happened in other countries during election campaigns, such as France or in the UK. And I think for the US, it's also important to mention that Donald Trump played a big part, in the ranking of this year's index regarding the US. But also during the Obama administration, what we criticized quite a lot is that whistleblowers were prosecuted in a very, very strong way. There's this Espionage Act, which dates back to 1917. And Obama, the Obama administration prosecuted at least 8 whistleblowers during his administration, which is a lot compared to all the other administrations before. But yeah, we've also seen, I think a big problem is direct and indirect political pressure, even in democracies where you actually wouldn't expect that. One example is Finland, which has always taken the lead in the index of press freedom, I think since 2009. And this year it has lost the first rank. I mean, some of the events that contributed to that were, I think, that the Prime Minister, you might have read that in the news actually, that the Prime Minister has meddled in the public broadcaster YLE's programming because to prevent conflicts of interest that he was possibly that was apparently the broadcaster wanted to cover a possible conflict of interest of his family. And he tried to sort of meddle in the programming, which is quite a big violation of press freedom. And I'm trying to rush now through it, but maybe one more important aspect when it comes to media freedom and democracies is what we see is that many intelligence agencies, or the surveillance powers of intelligence agencies in democracies are being extended. So, for example, we have a new law in the UK that was adopted a couple of months ago. It was dubbed the Snoopers Charter, you might have heard of it, which is basically extending the surveillance power, but it lacks a sufficient protection for journalists. And we've also heard a couple of months ago that the German Foreign Intelligence Agency, the BND, has actually spied on at least 50 phone numbers, email addresses, fax numbers of foreign journalists abroad, even very prominent ones like the BBC in Afghanistan or the New York Times in Afghanistan. So this is also a very shocking development. But now I want to focus on Turkey. Which has become, a focus country for us. I think for Reporters Without Borders, I mean, it has always been a country where we did a lot, where we had to do a lot of advocacy work or, publish a lot of press releases that sort of created an audience or an awareness among the public. But since the coup attempt in July 2016 and then the declaration of the state of emergency, it really has become, I have one more minute, a focus country. Just to give you some figures, since the coup attempt, at least 150 media outlets have been closed in Turkey. Right now, it's a little bit hard with the numbers, but at least 165 or I think 167 journalists right now are in jail. And we've even had sort of a new quality. We've seen a new quality in repression even in the last couple of weeks with the arrest or with the detention of Deniz Yücel and Meşale Tulut, both journalists detained in Turkey right now, and both having a German passport. For Meşale Tulut, she actually only has the German passport, and this is really a new quality of repression that Erdogan now goes, to target foreign correspondents. I mean, in the past it has happened that they've been detained for a couple of days or that they were not given visa or accreditation, but this is really a new form of repression, we think. And maybe one last sentence. Our correspondents, and we have correspondents in about 150 countries. Not all of them are public because of security reasons, but in Turkey is Erol. He's on trial himself now because of apparently doing propaganda for a terrorist organization because he supported a pro-Kurdish newspaper, and now he's being charged for that absurd charge, we think. His trial is still ongoing, and we hope that the authorities will drop these charges. So, thank you.